name is Robert, as you can see, Jakech, depending on how you pronounce it. It can mean one of the two, either the hungry one or the selfish one. I use them interchangeably, depending on the situation, but I prefer the hungry one because I'm constantly eating, not just food, but eating a lot of data to process information. So if you call me Jakech, that means that's the correct pronunciation, the hungry one. If you call me Jakech, that means the selfish one. A little bit about myself. I am originally from Uganda in East Africa, born, raised there. 10 years ago, made a conscious decision to move to a whole different country, which is Australia. So my family and I live in Australia. We've been living there for the last 10 years. Moving to Australia has opened up my eyes to experience both sides of life. Life where you see you have to do something, living in adverse, extreme poverty, and life of materialistic. So I have 10 years of living to understand how both worlds can be different and yet the same, because both of them actually have humans. Where there's humans, you just go through the same problems. I've been in the community since 2008, and at the time we had MIFOS, one of the very, very first tech stack for what has now evolved into Apache Fineract. I've seen the progression and development and the scaling and where we are today since 2008, when I was still living in Uganda, and I've appreciated lots of things that have happened since then. So, and I'm also the CTO at FIDA. FIDA is a fintech solution. We provide implementations and support on top of open source solution, which is pretty much Fineract, Apache Fineract. So this talk was meant to be for a different track altogether. So I call it a beautiful accident because it gives me an opportunity to show some of you who might have not heard about Apache Fineract, to perhaps maybe get a glimpse of what it is. It was supposed to be under fintech, but accidentally launched under API. So it's all good. Some of my hobbies, apart from spending time with the family and friends and drinking beers here and there, I love music. I am not absolutely technical at all. I cannot produce anything. I got into music by accident, and today I serve as executive producer for artists from Africa, and the lessons learned in music and fintech will form what I'm going to discuss, especially leveraging the power of AI. So when the AI thing started popping up here and there, it came at the right time because we were already thinking of how we can leverage either to make the team more efficient or to give back to the community. And I've been in the thick of it, not as an expert, but a user, but also appreciator of the technology. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So, of course, no need to define what artificial intelligence is, but if you're just wondering, some of the key aspects and the key words would be, of course, intelligence and artificial, which doesn't mean natural. But imagine the human brain is wired in a way that it can do trillions of things all at the same time, but artificially, by using machines and stuff like that. So that's what artificial intelligence is, which gives you the capability to think, process, translate, and do all bunch of complex things. And of course, the famous one we all know is the GPT, which powers the ChatGPT in the OpenAI, which has been making a lot of waves. But there's some other AI tools that you could use for building models like TensorFlow, PyTorch, and a bunch of others. I'm not here to evangelize any of them, but just to shed light and share experiences on the things that these things could help. Apache Software Foundation definitely has a guidelines on adoption of generative AI, which is something very, very important, because everything needs to be in the confine of the guidelines. Implementing Fineract, Apache Fineract, and working with different clients across the globe has opened our eyes to a whole new thing. When Mythos was, being conceptualized, I think the movement was always financial inclusion. Since then, with Apache coming on to embrace Fineract, which is a core banking solution, a lot of things have evolved. We interact with real life users, from small to medium sized to some big ones who are actually seriously looking into leveraging the power of open source for their core banking solutions. And each time we talk to them, you come out of such a meeting with two things. One, they can really make a lot of money with this, or they can really help humans. And we do have internal joke within FITA is that we are humans. It's actually one of our values. We made a conscious decision that we need, much as the world is tending towards materialistic things, we need that empathy to make sure that what we do also impacts humans. So the potential capabilities of AI hypothetically integrated into Fineract could help both worlds, but there's a whole other area that we can actually explore, which we do believe would be really, really great if integrated. Of course, within the confine of the guidelines of ASF. And therefore, I'm going to run through a few use cases that potentially would be of high value. But Fineract itself, as you know, is an open source tool that is right now under Apache Software Foundation, and it's one of those many tools that you can use for your banking and financial services, from microfinances to neobanks to commercial banks to whatever, name it, traditional financial institutions. Its use case is so broad that you can make it do anything you want, and that's why we do believe that integrating some of these tools would actually give it even a much more better benefits. So, traditional banking, traditional finance, whatever you want to call it, the focus is always going to be on the customer. And the customer are, if not mistaken, are human beings. These are people who are either coming to improve their standard of living through maybe savings, or they're coming in to get financial services that they can improve their livelihood. The problem with the traditional kind of banking, it was designed in a way that was not that flexible. Now with the rise of open source, we are seeing more and more conversations around how can we customize, how can we move faster, how can we incorporate some of the new things that are coming up to make sure there's business continuity. And we have been in those discussions where we were part of, to bring a solution on top of an open source. The big players are appreciating the open source stack as well, because they know it is the future. They know it's one of the things that's going to really make them scale. It's going to make them, open up different avenues. Now with the coming of AI is even making it better, because they're seeing impossibilities, becoming possible. There's also less restrictions, because of the community that is built around it. So all these are things that are very helpful for our generation and also for the financial and fintech overall. With Fineract, the use cases range from payments to traditional banking or specific customizations that you can do. We have seen integrations with different business cases like insurances. We have seen integrations with neobanks, wallets that are built on top of Fineract. We have seen integrations with other third parties, ESB, and a bunch of other things. And this is something that is very much needed because the alternative is a closed loop. You don't want to go to closed loop. And one of the things that we feel is really good is that each time we meet these players, we emphasize the fact that this is a community driven. It's not us coming to own anything. So along the process, we encourage them to make sure they know this is not something that is, off the shelf. This is a community-driven initiative, and therefore, even when they use it, they need to pay attention to that. So it's highly customizable, and we have use cases on payments, wallets, traditional banking, and a bunch of other things. So the potential, as I said at the beginning, for us to leverage AI is actually limitless. You could look at it in a sense of making it much bigger so that commercially it becomes really, really, really good. Or you could hone it into opportunity to impact the standard of living. And I consciously picked a few use cases, not more than 4, that potential benefits to this open source core banking powered by Apache. And one of them is, again, choice of word, sensible, expansive credit scoring. So living in a country like Australia is far different from where I was brought up, Uganda. A country like Australia, United States, Canada, Germany, name it. Pretty much they have most of their things in order. If I want to get a credit check, I can just get it in a blink of an eye. When you go to a more developing or less developed countries like Uganda, Kenya, it's a little bit more complex. It's not just the banking as you define it, right? The Western world would consider banking like I have a bank account, trusting somebody in between there. In less developed countries is the accessibility of, the finances, the accessibility of what would bring them close to, what we call the world economy. So they are always intuitive, either it is completely cash economy or some sort of banking services, for example, like M-Pesa, the Kenyan M-Pesa, or mobile money, which is pretty much running on a 2G phone. It's running on SMS, it's running on USSD, If you're lucky, some would have like apps, real-time apps. And that becomes a little bit complex when you start now bringing the idea of credit scoring. It's not going to work the same like in Canada, where you have the institutions are all much, there's more detail in technology and there's understanding of all these integrations. So with the AI, the opportunity is there because you can reach more than just the organized banking system. You can expand it to include other use cases, like as I said, mobile money, neobanks. Like for example, I do send money to support my family back home in Uganda, and I don't need to worry for them where they're going to get the money because I know there's an integration with an existing sort of a banking system in the name of mobile money. So my mom can just go to the nearest kiosk and withdraw the money, and yet from where I am, I'm using an app to do that. Such kind of thing now is what I call expansive credit scoring. And for some of the customers that we work with, like in Africa especially, and some other developing countries, the source of their financial is not aggregated to the traditional finance. It's basically, at one point I can buy my grocery using mobile money, another one I'm using debit card, not even credit card. In some place I'm using cash. So if you bootstrapping a fintech business, it's highly, highly impossible always to get an actual credit score of such a person. And we see an opportunity with AI to disrupt that area. The other one is, of course, fintech, Fineract, as we know it, is loans and transactions. Transactions could be part of the loans, can also be part of savings. Of course, there are other use cases depending on how you want to customize it. But one of the biggest, opportunities we see being leveraged on top of Apache Fineract is loans. Loans, either mortgage loans, or it could be just, merchant loans where somebody has a small business and they want to access, financial services through loans. The problem, again, if we go back to the credit scoring and to see the pattern, predictability is extremely very hard because of the distributed way of how finances are actually, running. So with the use of AI, there's quite a lot that could be done within the loan itself, from the origination to predicting whether there's going to be opportunity for somebody to be in distress. For example, they have a loan and want to do restructuring. How can we tell ahead of time, based on the data that we have, an event that perhaps would, bring somebody to default or they're in a stress? We had issues with COVID, and lots of financial institutions and fintechs, felt, I wish there was a way to predict, such things. Could AI be the one that opens the floodgates? And this is something that I want to throw out there. We have things to do with like moratorium, which is basically, maybe stopping payments of interest and only paying principal, or altogether pausing and so on. I wish there was a predictive way to do that. So it's an opportunity that we could all explore. And savings is also a very big part of what Fineract provides. And whether it is savings through a new bank, through wallet, through traditional banking, microfinance, SACCOs are like equivalent to cooperatives, where you come together, you join effort, and you provide yourselves financial services. AI can play a big role in there, especially in trying to streamline the spending, but also the saving capabilities of the people actually that are being impacted. One of them is like the budget analysis. And in some of these things, like, they're very basic in some places like Canada and US and so on. But the rest of the world is still like, they're spending money in different sources, right? From mobile money to the cash, to the bank, their salaries, whatever, their wages that are coming in. So they can't, by the end of the month, an average person doesn't even know how much they've spent, how much they've saved, and so on. One of the things that I think would be very useful when integrated is a way to help them with their budget analysis, personalized investment opportunities where there is a way to aggregate and curate and then share this information back to the customers, which can help them, to improve their standard of living and so on. Recommendations on certain things that would be of interest. Some institutions are running like floating interest, which is predominantly impacted by the economy of the country. How the commercial bank, the national bank is, driving things. It could be inflation and so on. So a common person is left at the discretion of certain small elite to make the decision on, how things are going to either fluctuate, come down, or go up. These are things that would be really useful within a tool like Apache Fineract. Security is one of those things that is the hot topic, definitely. Interesting conversations we do have with stakeholders is always having to explain to them that open source does not mean insecure. Because the word open is most of the times misinterpreted as it's for everybody, so anybody can jump in and do things, right? So we try to explain our way around it. And I think one of the things that would be really, really great is a more robust way to handle security, not just only in the code, but in infrastructure as well, but more predominantly a way to, we know that tools that can do that, right? You can use tools like Sonar and Codify and a bunch of others out there that can quickly configure and give you like the vulnerability measures. But more could be used to even give you more extensive way so that there's more security-proof, security awareness, which also includes things to do with fraud and other things as well. And we see huge opportunity of AI helping in that area, where it can actually add so much value to the tool. A great sense to just embed it. Let's cross the bridge when we reach there. But for us to start, I guess, would really be good. The one thing I was attending a talk, a keynote today was the star coder. The star coder, I've never heard of it, which actually, where you don't have to share the data. I think that would be a great thing, especially for developers to integrate. Everything is lived within your IDE, and you're not like, sharing the data you download, set it up, install, as opposed to GitHub Copilot, which definitely we know is sharing the data as well, and that to some extent might be debatable on the Apache Software Foundation guidelines. Something like that is really interesting. Maybe it will help a lot also to increase the level of contribution within the development team, within the Apache Fineract community, because then that is we know that it's something that maybe will pass the smoke test, the smell test from Apache Software Foundation guidelines. Yeah. It's something that we want to look at as well. All right, we still have some time. Any other questions, any other comment? Yes?
Yeah, thanks for the talk, Robert. I know you left out, because you're only covering some of the use cases, but you left out, I think, a couple of the more obvious ones, like chatbots, customer support.
Yeah.
Have you seen how that's been used in your practice so far?
Yes, so we do have a partner of ours in Colombia. This is before like the ChatGPT thingy came and was making waves. We helped them with implementation of their Fineract, and then they were taking care of all the front-end developments, customer facing. What they built was integration with WhatsApp and other messaging engines. Facebook Messenger was one of those. The one for Chinese. WeChat was there, WhatsApp was there, SMS. And they did a demo. This was a long time ago. I don't think any of my colleagues will remember. But where they would originate a loan through a WhatsApp. It just keeps giving you a prompt, and you're chatting, and then it does all the scoring for you, and then it says, okay, based on the information you've given me, this is how much we can give you. That was really cool. And I've seen other use cases like Stripe. Stripe is one of those that actually integrated GPT-4 for helping with the customer interactions and chatting as well, which I think was really cool. So yeah, that use case definitely is something that I considered. Just for the interest of time, I just wanted to highlight only for, yeah, Lex.
An interesting question could also be how we could avoid the bias in these AI solutions, because not that we end up suggesting loans only to doctors and lawyers, only because they are driving on a serious matter. I don't have an answer to that.
It's like what you're saying is giving loan to like
the original idea, as you said, financial inclusion.
Yes.
Right? And now we use a technology that might have some bias included that we cannot
They already included.
Control
Yeah.
and that we are not aware of, which is even worse. If you know it, then probably there's a way to fix this problem.
Which would be interesting, because if you're, let's say you're running a small impactful microfinance somewhere in Nigeria, and your intended, your intention is to impact the livelihood of, let's say, small businesses, or empower women, or empower small businesses to take up. How do you then make sure somebody like Alex, who's already well off, should not be able to take advantage of that, right? Would AI be a solution to say, this is an Alex, this is a Steven, so Alex, we love the idea that you would pay us in time, but our intention is not to give you the services. Maybe that would be something interesting to look at. But I think definitely we were having conversation over lunch that sometimes people are using all this AI thing without even thinking, right? There's some thought that still needs to be invested, because otherwise it's just going to end up copying and pasting, and who does that help? Nobody. So context is also important, and the use case, definitely the intention. Still somehow human beings will have to intervene at some point. Yes, sir.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yes. All right, 5 minutes. So I have an opinion on inclusion, right? Inclusion is I'm passionate about it because, as I said, I've lived both worlds. I've lived in a world where definitely they are excluded. And then I live in a world where you have access. And then I started rethinking the whole idea of inclusion. And I think it's a great mantra. It's a great narrative, like financial inclusion, 1.2 billion unbanked and so on. But when you go underneath and you pull the rugs, it's a whole different thing. Like, how do you include? I always say inclusion is in being invited to the table. There's a table, we want you to come and join us. The question is, where is the table? How do I find where the table is? Once I reach the table, can I say something? Am I just gonna sit there at the table? So, and now I'm thinking of more accessibility, as the first step. When people know where the table is, and they're equipped enough to have a conversation at the table, therefore they're included. Yeah, that's the sidebar. Anyway, thank you so much. If there's nothing else, I appreciate your time sitting here. We can always take this over a beer, or over the floor. I think my time is up. And Nicholas, thank you for this. Yeah, thank you.